even after walking 2,700 miles from Milwaukee to the Pacific Ocean, one veteran realized those were just the first steps to healing from war. Find out about his advice for talking with veterans about their experiences as we gather this season with family and friends when we come back.
Well, after serving in the war in Iraq, our next guest came home carrying invisible wounds from seeing things that went against his fundamental beliefs. He couldn't heal with medication and even contemplated suicide.
Tom Voss walked across the country to raise awareness for veterans issues, but as it turns out, that trek was just the beginning of his own recovery. And Tom is back with us on the yellow couch, along with his sister, Rebecca Ann Wynn. They co-wrote this book, Where War Ends, a combat veteran's 2,700-mile journey to heal. Tom is now teaching meditation to help veterans heal from PTSD and what's called moral injury as well. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, brother-sister team. This is really a cool thing that you guys have ventured to do together. You've ventured quite a bit to heal.
Yes.
PTSD, I think, is something people are very familiar with as a term, but moral injury is, I think, a new phrase a lot of people haven't heard. How do you describe it?
Yeah, so the definition of moral injury is when you witness or participate or fail to prevent acts that go against your own moral, we call it moral scaffolding, or the structure of your morality.
Yeah.
This is kind of inherent in war when you have to see the horrors and you're in these situations where you don't have a choice. It's kind of kill or be killed, unfortunately. And when you come home, you start to contemplate, was I justified in my actions? Can I be forgiven? Am I a good person after experiencing these things? And I think that's a lot what men and women are facing when they come home from combat.
I think that's so tough. I'm glad that there is a word for it, because I think probably anybody who's ever served in war has dealt with that issue, but it hasn't had a name where then you could cope with it.
Right.
So you probably tried to do all sorts of things to try to cope with the moral injury and the post-traumatic stress that you had, right?
Yeah. I mean, I started at the VA in traditional talk therapies, EMDR, and different therapies that the VA had offered. But it wasn't touching these moral wounds, I guess you could say. So I really tried to experience all these different healing modalities that I could, and through my walk across the country, I experienced peer support, nature-based therapies, and meditation.
That was a long walk.
Yeah.
You went far.
2,700 miles?
Yes, 2,700 miles, 5 months, 7 states.
5 months,
Yeah,
7 states.
What did people say to you? Because I know you said a lot of peer support, and I'm sure there's a lot of communities that rallied around you, kids you see. What is the thing that most people said?
I think everyone that we talked to along the trek, they were really supportive, and I think people need to understand that the civilian population really wants to help. They just need an outlet to do it. So we need to just come up with ways that we can connect veterans and the community so veterans are able to share their experiences.
Civilians not only, but family. And I think this is a time when people are gathering around their friends and family for the holidays. And I think oftentimes as a sister, as a family member, you don't know what to say to someone, even if years and years and years have passed since their service.
Correct.
How do you guys tell people in terms of questions or conversations amongst family to, even within the family or friends, allow for healing?
Yeah, I think what worked for us was asking questions even if you might not know exactly what to say or how to say it, and being willing to be wrong and ask the wrong thing, and maybe you're going to offend someone, but it's better to ask than not ask. So sort of be willing, I think, as a family member to take that risk and let your loved one know that you're there for them. You realize that their healing isn't happening on a timeline that might make sense to you. Maybe it is years later and you finally have the courage to ask them. But maybe even it's a statement to say, hey, I'm here to listen if and when you're ready to tell me about what happened.
And I bet it's so hard because you've experienced things that you don't want to say to your sister. And especially if you've had to participate in things you think or not prevent things that violate your own moral code. And I wonder, did you have a sense that you were worried about Tom when he came back? Because you worry when they're gone and then they come home and you're worried.
Yeah, I think so. I think I was worried when he came home on leave, which was a traumatic experience, I think, in itself for him and for us. When you get 2 weeks to come out of a war zone and then you have to go back, he has to go back. So that experience was terrifying. And I think, too, when veterans are coming home from war, you know, we've had friends and family who say it seems like everything's okay at first.
Right.
And then 6 months in, a year in, a few years in, it all starts to come out. So I have a friend now who's her husband is a veteran, and it's 10 years later, 15 years later.
Yeah, when you're finally able to even maybe process or even let words come out of you. Have you found that other veterans have found this same sort of healing, I guess, with things like the meditation or the nature immersion or the EMDR, all the types of things that you said have kind of worked for you and gotten a little deeper?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of veterans that are understanding that they need to find what works for them, and that might not be a traditional model. But at the same time, that's not to say that, you know, we should throw away, you know, these traditional healing modalities. We have to try everything that we can to heal ourselves as veterans and be open and honest, and just talking about the family aspect too. It's extremely important that veterans share these experiences, and like you said, it's challenging because we feel like we're protecting people from these experiences by not sharing them, but at the same time the families want to help heal their loved ones. So if we're not having communication around the experiences, it makes it really challenging for the families as well.
I want to talk about meditation specifically, because you've mentioned a lot of different healing tools that are awesome. More recently, I'm new to meditation. I've done some self-directed and some guided, and I love both thank you, for different reasons.
Yeah.
But it's helpful for so many things, not nearly to put it on the same level as you, but with sleep, with understanding things. I know for a lot of people with pain, with going through illness, with loss, things like that, meditation is, and until you start doing it, you don't feel it.
Right.
But what have you seen in an incredible transformation with something as simple as meditation? Yeah,
from a healing standpoint, for me, meditation has really allowed me to really process what I went through. So before I started meditation, I would get kind of swept away in the emotion of these events. So if I experienced something that reminded me of my time in Iraq, it could throw me for weeks at a time where I didn't want to engage with people and I didn't want to do anything with anyone. And meditation, I say, gives you the space emotionally to be able to process and witness what's going on inside of you, to be able to allow your body to heal itself naturally.
It's kind of amazing sometimes where it takes you.
Yeah.
You don't always...
Tell me
You're
about
not always
it.
ready. It's pretty cool. I know people can see your Emmy-nominated film, which is Almost Sunrise, on YouTube, and where else?
iTunes and Amazon as well, yeah.
And obviously get a copy of the book Where War Ends as well, and that's most places, or again on Amazon?
Yeah, you can find it in most places where books are sold.
Great. Thank you guys so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, I love that you co-authored the book. You're blessed to have this relationship as siblings, and the understanding and everything else is wonderful.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you
Thanks
so
to
much.
both of you. Appreciate it.